Good evening, YouTube viewers and subscribers. So what I've got here today is my 90-ish percentage disassembled FA-60T, and these parts have all been cleaned up. This is kind of how I handle twin cylinder engines, is I'll have one bin for one side and one bin for the other, and then one for the main central or common components. And I had this disassembled so that it was facing away from me, so that this side is for this side of the engine, this side is this side of the engine. So anyway, I just want to go through, this video is just going to be showing off some of these parts. I'm not going to do a reassembly video, at least not here anyway. But let's move these out of the, let's just talk about these things here real quick. So there was really no major issues in disassembling this engine at all, and the initial video where I said this was a medium or higher runtime engine, I think I was incorrect there. It's really, I don't really think this was all that high of a runtime engine. If you saw the disassembly video, you saw the top of the pistons, they really weren't dirty at all. But so the connecting rods, at least the screws here, kind of gave me a little bit of a scare at first because they were just jammed with gunk. The heads, and I wasn't able to figure out what the hell size wrench was going to fit in there, so I ended up having to kind of toothbrush that out a little bit, or swab it out and get it in there. But they really weren't all that bad. The first video showed that I did have a broken E-ring, so I've only got one for this side right now. The heads, all of these parts have been in the ultrasonic cleaner, so everything is cleaned up, nice and clean. Piston, the rings are freed. Everything's nice and clean and ready to be reassembled, with the exception of the exhaust valves. I have not really cleaned the exhaust valves yet. I'm going to keep these separated here, but I want to try and zoom in on them a little bit and show you. So it was just a little bit of carbon deposit on there that was actually causing these to stick. So they were both stuck down, and I don't know if this is because both exhaust valves are exhausting at the same time or what, but it just seemed odd to me that you'd have two valves stuck down. But anyway, so it must have just been stopped in that position, and that's how it was left. It wasn't really run through or anything like that, and made sure that the valves were seated before being stored. So what I'm going to do here with these is I'll probably just kind of put them in a small container of LA's Totally Awesome Cleaner and let them soak for a few minutes, and then I usually take just a razor blade and just kind of scrape all that stuff off there, and that's how I'll end up cleaning those guys. The heads both look really good. I mean, everything in this engine looks really pristine. It's going to look really nice, I think, once it gets all put back together. So the main common components here. So I tore this down to the point of, in that disassembly video you saw that I took this cover off. So there's two gaskets here. There's a gasket here, and then there's a gasket here because this section comes off also. So I took this part off and kind of did a quick inspection and looked at it, and I had all the screws out so that this whole big section here was, I could move it a little bit, but I couldn't get it off. What I decided to do was, after I took the pistons and heads and connecting rods off, I decided to just go ahead, I pulled the prop drive hub off, and I just put this entire assembly in my ultrasonic cleaner and let it go for about 5-6 minutes, and it came out looking really clean. And I'm really happy that these little placards didn't come off, because I have had some Saito engines that had these things on there that actually comes off in the ultrasonic. Maybe it's because I didn't leave it in there that long. But anyway, so I started kind of messing with this thing a little bit more, trying to see if I could pull it off, but then I started just kind of rotating it and feeling the bearings, and I'm like, I don't really feel all that bad. So I just decided to just spray it down with alcohol in there really good and blow it out, and then just oil this thing up, because I've made a decision. It's probably not going to be the most popular with people, but you know, I don't really care. But I've got several reasons for that. I am not going to be replacing the bearings on this engine at this time. To me, they don't sound perfect, they don't sound brand new, but they also don't feel bad. So I'm just going to run this. I'm going to put this engine back together and run it, and the few runs that I'm going to do with this engine, these bearings will be fine. So that's, and that's one of the reasons I think they'll be fine for the amount of runs I'm going to put on this engine. Another reason is because I really kind of want to run this engine this weekend, seeing as I've got a 3-day weekend. And if I were to order bearings even today, I don't think I'd get them here in time and all that. So I really am kind of anxious to run this thing. Besides, it's not going to get destroyed by running it like this, because like I said, these bearings are really not all that bad. In fact, this front bearing doesn't look bad at all. It looks pretty new actually, so I'm not too concerned about that. Another reason is that if I don't change the bearings in it, maybe I won't have anybody asking me if I want to sell this engine. That's a minor reason. But the other thing was, I didn't have a replacement gasket set on hand either. Now this gasket here came off fine, but after this one had been in the LA's Totally Awesome cleaner, and if I would have pulled it off and really pulled this thing off, I'm certain that gasket would have been destroyed. So I did go online today on eBay, and I found the last engine gasket set for this engine that was in the Horizon Hobbies website, and I purchased that, so I'll have that on hand here in a few days, just in case I end up eventually doing bearing replacement on this. This thing here is a slotted screw-on cover, and I want to talk about this briefly because it's just an aluminum cap threaded into an aluminum body. Now I managed, and a nickel fits in there really well. In fact, I had to use a nickel and some vice grips, clipped in a vice grip to turn this thing. But you gotta really, before you even ever think about taking this thing out, don't do what I did, which was try and do it without heating it up. You need to oil this thing up really well and then heat the living crap out of it before you start trying to turn it, because I tried with it not heated up, and I just kind of started twisting out this slot, and I was like, oh crap, that's not good, because it's already a big slot and there aren't really any other coins that are thicker than a nickel, so it would have been kind of a tough one to try and find something to jam in there. So I ended up oiling it with 3-in-1 oil, letting it soak in for a second, then I hit it with a heat gun really hot, and I was able to pop that thing loose. And that is critical if you're going to replace that cam bearing in here, because this is the camshaft. It's too bad that I don't have this cover off, but I can put a picture from the manual on here. These boxer engines, every boxer engine I've ever had, the Magnum, the OS, this one, are the absolute simplest engines there is to time. I mean, they have timing marks. You just line up the timing mark on the gear with the case and boom, you're done. I mean, it's just incredibly simple. So this engine is timed and ready to go, and it's ready for me to start reassembling it. Now, whether I actually feel like doing that tonight or not, I don't know. But I did want to kind of go through some of the efforts I took on this engine to get it cleaned up. And the good thing is, all the rubber feels pretty good. So I don't have any idea how old this engine is. It's got a gold, black and gold box, so it dates it to the 90s sometime. But you know, overall this engine is in really, really good shape. It came with some wrenches, a spanner. It didn't come with a feeler gauge, but I got a million of those. It came with the flex exhaust, which looks like it's in really good shape. It hasn't been torqued around or twisted or bent up at all. And this engine really does look like it's a pretty low time engine. Now, it didn't come with the instruction manual, but I've got one online. But this engine is pretty much ready to go, get put back together, and hopefully I'll get this on the stand this weekend. So hopefully it's gonna go well. And I didn't realize I had that pulled in so tight still. So anyway, that's the status of the clean parts of this Saito FA-60T engine, and stay tuned for some run videos coming up.